Okay, welcome back to this session now. In the previous lecture, we discussed about scenarios of two teachers, teacher A and teacher B, and how they are teaching in the classroom. And we said it is 20th century shifting to 21st century way of teaching, where the student is the center, at the center of the teaching. So what you call student-centric type of teaching. So now I'm going to discuss about what is this active learning and how does it really work. So active learning is basically an approach of teaching where the goal of this active learning is actually to make sure that you're engaging your students when they're in the classroom, make sure that they're participating in the process of learning, but at the same time, make sure that you are setting up activities that involve students to be able to talk to each other, to work together, and then be able to write something, and then be able to reflect on what they're writing, and then be able to learn in the process together. That is what you call active learning. So it is something that is actually explicitly based on the theories of learning, so which could be either constructivism or behaviorism or cognitivism or other theories of learning, which have proved that active learning in the classroom can help our students be able to learn better. And we as teachers be able to shift from the way of teaching of 20th century to the way of teaching 21st century. So there are a lot of research, also empirical research, that has suggested that whenever we use active learning strategies in the classroom, learning is actually happening and students are getting most of the knowledge that they require to get at that particular point in that particular time. So, yeah, this is a reflection spot where you need to think, take your pen and paper, write down the response to this question. As you go through the scenarios, you will have to... I'm giving a scenario. I'm giving different scenarios where you'll be required to take your pen and paper, be able to write the responses to these scenarios. So, yeah, consider these teaching learning scenarios that are shown here. Scenario 1, teacher teaches on a topic for 1 hour, and then students will be seated and listening. That is scenario 1. Then scenario 2, the teacher teaches. For every 20 minutes, she pauses and asks students, do you understand? Do you have any questions? Do you have doubts? Then students will raise their hands and say yes or no. That is scenario 2. Now, scenario 3 is that the teacher teaches, and in 20 minutes, she asks questions. Students some questions for clarification. And then she also clarifies their notes and ways of teaching. And each student has also to talk to the neighbor and discuss some notes together. That is scenario 3. Now, the scenario 4 is a bit deeper. So teacher teaches the topic for 20 minutes. She then poses a real-life example so that students can be able to connect from what they are learning and to what they are learning to what is existing in the environment and the real world. But again, what she does is that she gives or devises a solution to that particular problem that she has posed in the classroom. And then the teacher, in the end, wraps up by giving a feedback or a question or a point that students need to ponder or discuss on so that they can be able to understand. And in the end, she summarizes what the students have been able to learn. Scenario 5 is that the teacher starts the class with 2 groups of debate. So you have one group of students and the other group of students. You give them activities to discuss about 2 methods that were used in the last class, methods of teaching. So students have to come up with working in groups together, and then have to come up with some advantages of the methods that were used in the 2 previous class. Then the teacher has to summarize what the students have done and what are the feedback that has come from the students to what is being presented right now here. And therefore, teacher summarizes which is a better method for which situation and poses a complex problem for some minutes, 20 minutes, so say, where students have to work together again and participate and discuss together. And then students work in groups again, choose the best method, and then they have to solve that particular problem based on the method to see whether they have been able to understand which particular type of problem that would be suitable to be solved by that particular method or this particular method. Now, take your pen and paper again and write down. From the scenarios you have seen, what is the teacher doing actually in the process of teaching from scenario 1 to scenario 5? And then what are students doing actually in the process of learning? Do they learn anything? Does the scenario 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 provide anything that student can be able to do? So note down your responses and then come back. Okay, now what you can see is that students are actually more doing on their own. And then there is more meaningful activities within the classroom, like writing, discussion, and solving problem. And of course, the students look to be engaged with the content as well, discussing, working on the content. There is some collaboration that is taking place because discussions are happening, and then the content is in between them where they are discussing based on their activities. And then there is some reflection because students have to share what they are working on, and then they have to present what they are learning on, and therefore. Now let's see what the teacher does. What the teacher does is that there is less talking in the classroom. So he is not talking more because students are doing more in the classroom. There is also what teacher does is to see what the groups are doing here and there, what the students are doing in the classroom. Therefore, there is more facilitation than teaching in the classroom. Then also there is more thought of class to design activities because students have to think of the real world situations, then be able to apply them in their own settings. So this is actually what you call, there is some more active learning happening between these scenarios, but at different levels, different learning levels. So what can we say about the features of active learning strategies? First of all, students are basically engaged in a problem-solving activity. So students will be given a problem, they have to solve it, and then be able to generate the solution for that particular activity. And then there is some collaboration in the process because students have to work together in groups, working together to achieve a common goal, a common objective. And then that is collaboration, which is very important in this particular 21st century. And students are also asked to figure out how things work in the classroom and how they can be able to apply in their own setting also. So application of knowledge is immediate, and they can also be able to think bigger. Then students are also asked to express their own ways of reasoning, how to reason. Why is this working like this? What if this changes to this and that goes like that? What would happen when this one is moved to that particular position? So there is also expressed reasoning by the students, which involves talking and thinking as well. And then there is also conceptual thinking because students have to think of the concepts that they have to give to the response of the question, and then they have to build knowledge on that particular concept by expanding, by discussing, explaining on how that could be able to work. And of course, students give specific ideas on how you could be able to solve a problem and how best you can be able to learn or achieve the objective of that particular course itself or that particular objective. And then, of course, in the end, because the teacher is there, the teacher will be able to give feedback that could be rapid because it depends on the context itself. Immediate feedback will be given based on the reactions. And therefore, what we do is that most of the cases we ensure that students participate in the process of learning. And then when they are participating is that you are removing all the misconceptions that might have happened in the process of learning because of the discussions that happen between the students themselves. And then in the end, it looks like it's funny. Students can be able to discuss together and then can be able to think together and understand all the activities and works that need to work or do all together when they are working in groups. So you could be able to see whether students are understanding or they're not understanding based on the activities you're setting up for your students and then based on the performance they're showing. But then, so that is how you can be able to apply your active learning and the advantages of applying active learning in the classroom. And now there are many, many different types of strategies that involve active learning in the classroom. So this could be either when you are teaching in the classroom, or it could be something that you do when you are in the lab session, or where you are actually doing a tutorial to your students. So suppose you are doing a teaching session in your classroom, you're lecturing. So they are like active learning strategies like think, pair, share, peer instruction. Those are active learning strategies that are commonly used. But the other active learning strategies like team, pair, solo, predict, explain, observe, which all these strategies will be discussing them slowly as we move, and we'll be touching probably with examples based on the scenarios. So that is all about active learning strategies. We'll discuss further as we move in the next slide.